Hello guys, here's one I get to start off right off the bat. I hope everyone's doing well. I'm doing fine, I just got in at work. Oh, we got a PMOS. Hello PMOS. Welcome, welcome. Paste. There we go. Oh, can still hear me talking, cool. I should have posted. Wonderful. Now I'll just show this out on Discord for the good people. The good lizards and the good peoples to watch. So today I kind of wanted to go on a serious subject. Go on my channel. Oh, that's upstairs, isn't it? Oh, I gotta go upstairs. Whoopsies. Alright, I should be shielded out. At all the watering holes. So I head upstairs. Get my dust mop. But yes, I kind of want to keep it to the title today and just leave it at the title. I think it's something that we should be concerned about. I'm sorry, I'm trying to collect my words, my thoughts. That's obviously what I'm going to say. Because I really do these things, off the cuff. I don't really think about what I have to say. I just let it flow naturally. Sorry to get those juices flowing, I guess. But essentially, heresy is something we should be concerned about. Which does lead to excommunication, even within the Catholicist sense. If you go up to the Protestant times when church and state weren't separate and heresy was like a sense of crime, more or less, I think it falls back onto those days. Now, modern times, I don't know the implications of it. Although, people have seemed to gotten rid of the excommunication bit when it comes to certain individuals, because of the grievous error. But it's concerning in the sense that sometimes a reason for it is that if one's mind does not change and you go to them and they not repent, then what else are you supposed to do? And it's not about unnecessary. Now, see, the problem is that people get interpretations and doctrines that are unsound put into their faith, which they don't need to put faith in, more or less, because if they're not speaking of what they know about, they should just say, take it on belief. And what does that mean? on belief in that instance. Well, if you don't know about it, I would think it would be a matter of belief. And to put the faith behind it seems to be dangerous because there's that uncertainty that you don't know that you're saying that you believe. It's not something you take on faith, it's something you take on belief. And that's, I think, the separation. Whew. Sorry, I know I'm kind of heavy breath. Whole face mask and working. Let me catch a moment to collect my thoughts. Check side chat. Oh, welcome, P. Mars. And I guess it also has to go with a passage I've been trying to bring up to people is Galatians 5, which is, I think, a very good verse to look at when it comes to these heresies and the works of the flesh versus the fruit of the Spirit. And we can clearly see that in that passage in Galatians, Paul's writing about how heresies are within the flesh. And that is because the denial of truth that goes into the belief of heresy, depending on the certain heresies. Now,
what do you think flesh means?
In that nature, probably just not of the way of the truth, just an arrogance or just
it means
physical materialist in that sense.
Of the world, pretty much. Of the world,
yeah,
instead of God's kingdom.
Pretty much, yeah. There's that separation that's made of that.
It's not necessarily bad. Wait, what am I thinking here? Like, the flesh isn't necessarily a bad thing because God made it, but it's just like when we put it before God, I guess.
Exactly. Well, I guess the works of the flesh, it's just, I think, it's a symbolic showing of that. When there are these things, they lead you away from spirit. But while the fruit of the Spirit, I think you can have. Now, whether you can be within the flesh and have the fruit of the Spirit, I think so.
When Paul
we get passages, I think, like with David and Saul and all these guys, who I think were led by the Spirit, but then also turned to wickedness and transgression, but were also repentant of such things. Go ahead, Mars.
Yeah, I read about this recently about when Paul's making a distinction between flesh and spirit. He's talking about like the powers of this world versus like spirit. He's referencing basically God's kingdom or like the power of God. So he's not like talking about ghosts, I guess, or whatever.
Oh yes,
spirits. He's
yeah,
talking about like
good point to make.
God's power.
That'd be kind of silly, talking about ghosts.
Well, you know what I mean. He's not talking about like our spirits.
Mm-hmm,
he's talking about the spirit
the truth,
of God,
yeah.
like the power
the truth,
of God,
the way,
the spirit of God. Like spirit is also a word for like that means I think the power of something, isn't it?
Breath, mostly breath, the wind, something along those lines. Welcome, Wiley.
Good morning.
The second definition of spirit is qualities regarded as forming. I can hear myself.
Oh, sorry, that's probably my stupid fucking thing. Give me a second.
Qualities regarded as forming the definitive or typical elements and character of a person. So, like the elements of the world, the character of the world versus the elements and character of God. Oh, wait, no, I'm getting this all messed up. Dude, it's so hard for me to understand the Bible because the words mean different things. You know what I mean?
Yes, in some sense, God's ways are not our ways. And then, like, it goes to the same thing how when Christ says, ye judge by outward appearance, but ye judge the flesh, but I judge no man. I judge, but in a sense, he's judged righteous by righteous judgment, which is pretty much, I think we went to this before, is that he's pretty much has the judgment to make the judgment. But it's like judgment made unto Christ, not necessarily you making that judgment. But to judge with like the meekness or whatever. Go ahead.
Ashley said in the chat, so Christ has truly set us free. Now make sure that you stay free and don't get tied up again in slavery to the law. Galatians 5:1. That's a good quote. I should save that, actually.
Yeah.
Mr. Batman must have missed that. And Nicholas.
The Torah keepers. I was just thinking that too. Like, yeah, Torah keepers. I don't think it's a problem. But yeah. Like,
no,
as long as it's not
I don't think it's a problem. Like, well, with Nicholas especially, because Nicholas doesn't seem to be judgmental if you don't keep Torah. Like, it's just something he personally does because he's a weirdo. But like, Mr. Batman will judge you for not keeping Torah. Even
How dare you?
The Bible says not to do that. Some
it's
people
like
just
badge of honor.
Some people just have a hard on for that Old Testament. They're masochistic or something. They're like, it's kind of immature. They want to be told what to do rather than like think for themselves.
Mr. Batman came on Smokey's channel last night for like 1 second and then left.
Yeah, he didn't even say anything.
I know, right? What'd you think of my spoof on Smokey's channel when I did with the avatar thing? I've been waiting forever to set it up. And I finally got to use the prank, man. Oh,
I didn't even notice. I went to bed.
Oh. Oh, yeah, I finally got to use it on him. I think it's like a little bit after, and I'm like, yes. And he's like, wow, I must really live in your head, Tug. I'm like, yes. I'm like, it's like the avatar. I'm like, I can't help it. It was good. I did it, and I had to keep doing it, Like, he really is right. It is a form of flattery. I'm like, I just really like to design, and I want it. I want to steal it. I want to be a thief in the night and just take it. Like, this is my intellectual property now.
I watched a little bit. I went to bed early, and then I watched a little bit of that this morning. He kicked some Marty girl was on there. He just kicked her off for no reason, pretty much. Or I guess she kept asking the same question. I don't know.
Oh, Marty? Yeah, I like Marty.
And
she's cool.
Chili bean.
At the end, Nicholas did really stupid research, I thought. Did you see that shit?
No, I didn't watch the end of it. After I went his, I went on to praises for a bit. And then I was like, I was talking about, I was presenting the question of flat earth and how if it's a heresy and all that.
Yeah, it's a heresy. It's stupid. We need to eradicate it from existence.
No, the only thing...
Wait, before you go on,
hold up. No, I do want to say something. I didn't say it in the chat because I didn't think it would have been while I was there in Praise's live stream, because I didn't think it was the appropriate time to do so, because I don't think it would have done any justice. But there was something that Joel said that did kind of raise my concerns, and that was along the lines, he's like, trust whatever the spirit of Christ leads you to whatever you believe. And like the way he worded it just gave it an open pass to believe anything. And that's dangerous because, again, you can giving someone an open pass to that is dangerous, because then they can do things outside of God. Like, you can convince themselves that murder is okay, that rape is okay, and all these other doctrines that people don't do is okay, because they could find reasons of in their ignorance of reading the Bible and completely use it against what it actually portrays of the truth. And I say that's a little bit dangerous, though. But I'm not going to penalize, just a forewarning for others. And I don't know if it would have done well there, and I didn't want to cause conflict and strife. So hopefully after the fact.
You should have called him on that, saying we should also test the spirit.
Exactly. Thank you. I was just about ready to mention that. And that's exactly what I was going to say. It's just I didn't want to cause confrontation because they were already getting into something. I was just trying to start a conversation, not an argument.
I would
But
say
yeah,
flat
Either
Earth
way,
is a
wait,
heresy
I was gonna
because it's
say.
a lie.
hold up,
I was
hold
gonna
up.
touch.
Go
I've
ahead.
been
Go
trying to
ahead.
say something. Okay, Jelly Bean. I have a question for you, and this is like the one time I actually need to answer out of you for something specific. I know you used this verse before. I'm trying to find out which one it is when it says that the that the Holy Spirit listens to the Father and then the Son listens to the Holy Spirit. Which one is that one? I forgot which one it is. That's it.
I don't know.
Well, I was asking Joe because I know he's used it before.
Oh, Jill. Oh,
Oh, sorry, I was listening to the song that was playing on the radio here, or the intercom.
I would say flat Earth is kind of a heresy because it's a lie, right? So you're not telling the
Essentially, yeah.
truth.
That's essentially why it's a heresy, because it's not the truth. And why would you not follow the truth? See, it's a
And
denial of the truth. It's worse.
that's something that's like clear as day. That's not true. That we can actually prove. Whereas like some of these things we talk about are abstract. Like it's kind of hard. It's based off interpretation, and you know.
But I don't necessarily think heresies will affect their work, although it is work of the flesh, the heresy. So maybe, but if they
Well,
do, I don't know if that like
Well,
interferes with good works. And that's what I
I'll
guess
let
the
Peter
question I was
speak
going to
first.
pose today. Yeah, I was going to pose that question. Does having bad heresies, depending on the heresy, is it dangerous? Does it damage the fruit of the works
well,
that you
Mark
do?
said well first, so
we're
he can go
born.
first.
Go ahead.
We're born into a world, and we're indoctrinated, and it's like we're deceived from birth and lied to. So we all believe things that aren't true. I don't know. It's no way to avoid it. So that's all I was gonna say.
Well, I
I
was
like
gonna
that.
say, well, if you've ever dealt with flat earthers, they can get pretty bigoted. So, yeah,
You would say
that's
it
not a good
damages the
for.
work of the flesh,
Well, I'd say it damages the work of
or the work of the works.
Yeah.
Sorry.
People get so wrapped up in what's true and not true. Like it's important like how we live our lives and what's in our hearts. Like that's what's important. It doesn't.
But don't you care about the truth, the way of the life?
Well, sure. Like I think the truth.
Sorry, I had to make that joke.
I do think the truth is important, but it's not so important as how we treat each other, how we live, and that's what really that's the most important. It's like
I think the key factor is to be like fathers. John, if you reading First John, it's a really good book. Like just going into it, especially if I believe it's in the first chapter, first or second, where it talks about fathers know God because of everything, and it's a really powerful verse to read into it. And I think those who do have love of the Father do understand a little bit more the deeper meat of understanding and the love and the understand and the cherishment and the patience going into a father's love. And so I think there's a deeper spiritual aspect to that has to do with being a provider and taking care of everybody. And like I'd have to say, being a dad mellowed my heart, like softened me up quite a bit. And it's just
yeah.
one of those things, like I'm still myself, but I'm definitely more lenient in things.
Good morning,
And it's
WoW heathen.
I think one of those weird things that just happens, but that's just my personal take and bias. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, I was thinking that when I was younger, I was looking for to hang out with people that were like minded or like had the same beliefs as me. But now that I'm older, I think like it's better to look for people that have the same heart as you, right? Like it doesn't matter if we believe the same things. It's like yeah, it's all about what's in your heart. And so I don't know. I've never had children, but I could imagine that probably it does make you open up your heart, I suppose, to love.
Oh yeah, dude. I used to be very cruel before my kids, and then I'm like that cruelness has kind of gone away just a little bit.
I see. That's to me what a child is. It's like two people come together and they share love by creating a child, and that it's like creating love, and that's why homosexual
form of love.
relationships are evil. Just kidding.
A form of love.
T-bars. That was like a jab right in the rib. Shove
A
it.
form of love. And that form of love contradicts Gnosticism.
Except for the
Freaking
good
Gnostic.
Gnosticism. Hey, that's not nice.
I've never seen a good Gnostic.
I know, I haven't either. I gotta explain that to Nakasuchi. I didn't want to address it on Smokey's channel because, like I said, I really didn't want arguments. I didn't want to
Yeah,
start
they
any.
called you
I didn't want a headache.
I heard him
Go
call
ahead.
you a Gnostic.
Well, yeah, I identified that when I first started off because I didn't know any better, and no one never told me don't do that. Except they told me not to do it, but they never gave me a good enough reason as to why not. And then I didn't know the extra connotations of it, like with the different sects, and then like, because I thought it was pretty much like a dead religious term, but I guess it's still very much alive, and that was the confusion on my part. So if knowing that, I probably wouldn't use it because I would probably just stick with
Denominational.
denominational.
Today, Junior. I know. But yeah, I started.
And I get what you were trying to do with
I lost my point.
I get what you were trying to do with the play on words and just going by the literal meaning of that.
Yeah,
title.
I was trying to say I know of God, and that's pretty much the gist I was going for. Go ahead, thank you.
However, that's one, of course, like we were trying to say back in the day. It's like you do realize Gnosticism has all these things known as heresies that come along with it.
And I didn't know well enough, like I said. Then he finally got like, "Yo, dude, what the fuck?" He literally had to yell and spell it out to me. So I'm thankful for that, at least.
The main reason I know a lot about the Gnostic heresies is because I've had to do research on things like why hell is not eternal, the problems when you compare sexuality to what we consider modern day theology on sexuality. And I mean just like sex in general.
I'm definitely a sex Gnostic, yeah. I'm terrible.
And then other stuff like that, as well as like female views on women, views on Holy Spirit, and more.
See, that gets even more spooky with that Holy Spirit being feminine. And then, that's probably why they did it, because everyone was calling their wife the Holy Spirit. Like, look, here she is, in the form of my woman, dwelling within her. Because you get those weird Christians that do that, like, in their relations. Like, they'll imagine the Lord. Like, I think that's more cultish behavior, but they'll imagine the Lord as they're doing the fornications. So it's one of those weird things, like they're doing it with the Lord or something like that.
I'm kind of glad. Do you want to say something, Moses? Go ahead.
Oh,
I don't think so. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't know.
With regard to that, I really don't think anything like that happened. And like I said, I'm pretty sure that around the time the Gnostics started getting their leased into the church, that's when that changed.
I'm kind of glad that Smokey and Nick label me as a Gnostic gutter trash or whatever and separate me from their community, because I think they're kind of dumb. So I'm glad they don't associate with me.
Oh, is that what they said to you today?
Oh yeah, they do it. They always make it clear whenever I go on there that like Nicholas has to be like, and P. Mars is not one of us. He is not a brother. He is Gnostic. Heresy. Like, whatever, dude. You're fucking weird.
We have to go. We gotta take you down to the Apostles' Creed and do you believe in these things? Yeah. So that's the whole thing about it. But I think you don't believe in the resurrection, so essentially you kind of are.
Well, aside from that, there is just some minor stuff that would be considered Gnostic. Not like on the wrong lines of the major heresies, but they're still considered Gnostic nonetheless.
In a sense, you don't really pull put all your faith and trust in God, because if
Yeah,
you make him out a liar when you say that he didn't die on the cross for everyone's sin, that he didn't resurrect. That makes him a liar in his
mm,
flesh living.
well, I think it's metaphorical, maybe.
Well, I mean,
See?
you do have that passage that says like, if it wasn't for the death and all that, what are we doing this for, basically?
Well, then there's
Yeah,
like
it makes no sense.
Jesus. I read a story. There's Jesus had this brother James that witnessed Jesus resurrect, and like before he saw that, he thought Jesus was mentally ill, and they're like trying to.
I think we can stop using that word, because at that time they wouldn't have used that word. Better to say that word crazy.
It says out of his mind.
it
Out
does
of
say
his mind.
something like,
We say out of his mind, but saying mentally ill, it's like,
It's the
up.
same meaning.
you remember that verse where we're talking about the kinsman coming for him? That's the type of language in that aspect that they would use, because I forget that.
Yeah,
Go
they
to
thought
that verse
he was sick. There's some.
yeah.
in the mind or something like that. It's what it like
Yeah,
it
they thought
says. So yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they would have said a demon. It possessed him.
Yeah, but it's just it means the same
Regardless.
thing as mental illness.
Oh,
But yeah.
well, reading I'm not sure. If you hear us say Gnosticism, we're not talking about agnosticism, because agnosticism is like it's like you don't know. The thing is with the idea of the word Gnostic, it's like the title. That's why Tog was using it. It's basically to know, while agnostic is like to not know, and in reference to God. However, what baggage that comes with Gnosticism is just a whole bunch of, what's it called?
Gnosis means
Heresies.
no.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
So agnostic, not to know.
And a Gnostic is someone who knows. That's so like not Gnostics though, we're referring to people that I guess received inspiration directly from God and went against scripture or interpreted scripture.
The Gnostics, in a sense, let's think of the Gnostics as some
In
random
a
guy who
sense,
comes. No, I was gonna say some random guy like, I don't know, Joseph Smith, and comes out. I
dum
have
dum
this
dum
secret
dum.
knowledge from the Lord that nobody else knows. And
Oh, the
secret. Not,
Mormon.
no, yeah, it's basically like that. But I didn't tend to say that he believed in Gnostic beliefs. I'm just saying that the way that idea mindset works is basically what he was doing. It's like, I know better kind of thing.
Most
Now,
most
Right.
as
Gnostics
opposed
in
to
the
what he was
Gnostic
already
sects.
existing.
Yeah, most Gnostics and Gnostic sects will come with that secret knowledge, and that's what separates them, because nothing's ever done in secret.
And
So
and even within the Bible,
go
there is
ahead.
a thing that the mysterions, or the secret knowledges and all that. However, that's revealed when you are understanding the scriptures yourself, you, the Christians, the believers, as opposed
Yeah.
to
So
just, we are the special Gnostics, and we know this and y'all don't.
we are.
So
Sorry, it's a
I'm
song.
sure there are a lot of like bad examples of Gnostics, like Joseph Smith obviously is a liar, but
He's not a Gnostic, but
well,
just
right.
given the
I
title of that
understand.
and a
Well,
I'm
mindset.
using that as an example.
I think a good online
I'm
example might
saying
be, and not any
there could
is like Messenger reveals online.
I
Like I
think
think
that's
he claims to be a prophet. I'm sorry. Go ahead, P. Mars.
I think that's the correct interpretation of how Jesus wanted us to be. He wanted us to have freedom like that, like a Gnostic, to kind of do not like total freedom to do whatever we want, but the freedom that exists when we love each other. So he didn't want us to follow like set commands and doctrines. So I think
Uh,
Gnosticism is right in
Oh, I
that.
well,
forgot.
actually, the Gnostics were pretty bigoted. Aside from having certain beliefs, they had it extremely weird with
Well,
what they
bigoted.
called. Wait, what was I gonna say? The divine feminine being at the top, the Father Yahweh being an evil fleshly God, and in Christ exclusively a spirit, and spirit is
Oh
good.
yeah.
Flesh is evil, spirit is good. That means anything in the world that gives you any form of like normal pleasure, and not by way of being addicted to it, but just simply just a normal pleasure is bad, and things like sex is bad, period. And since women, you have sex with them, they're bad, they're evil. And if women want to get into heaven, they will become a man. Hey, an early form of transgender.
I have no idea.
Yeah, I was gonna say also with the secrets of Nazism, it's always referred to like the secrets haven't been revealed to you, so you like need them to explain it as well. They'll use that because you're just misunderstood by modern or ancient whatever or scholars. They'll use buzzwords,
Well,
and those buzzwords are always wrong.
Thing is, T-Mars, you know how you always bring up the idea of like the, stuff that was being got from Plato and whatnot, right?
What, the immortal soul being from Plato?
Stuff like that. Now, I'm not sure if it really. I do think that the soul within the Bible, just from given how the way the word works, seems to just be talking about life and all that.
Yeah, soul is in the Bible, but it means
Yeah. However, like that, things like teachings from that, and even things like that emerge from Plato and whatnot. That's where a lot of Gnosticism comes from.
Okay.
So basically, what I'm getting at is like just think of how that kind of contradicts Scripture, and that's basically what the Gnostics are, but even more so. But what I'm also getting at is, what I'm getting at, before you go, also what I'm getting at, certain things that the Gnostics teach, I believe, got into the church and corrupted it, making it what it is today.
You also got to remember that church and state weren't separated too, so there was crimes involved as well.
I don't believe that's true at all, Lizard. I would love to see some actual evidence for that. But I would say, what was the other thing you said before that?
Well, I was gonna say the proofs in like even with I think Smokey's avatar with the Smokey Saint. That's what I'm sorry if you must. Go ahead.
The immortal soul is not in the Bible. So saying that's Gnostic is no, it comes from Plato.
Well, that's the thing. That's what I was getting at. The Gnostics got a lot of their stuff from Plato,
which wasn't from God.
What? So the church the church was influenced by Plato and Greek philosophy to come up with this idea of an immortal soul.
Guess who got that? Guess where they got that from?
From
the
Gnostics.
Yes. But it originally. You know how? Yeah. All right. I get what you're saying, but like I said, yes, it originates from Plato. Yes, but how did it get to them? It was through the Gnostics.
Chicken before the egg.
But yeah, what was trying to get?
Okay.
Thinking of what's it called?
Yeah, Gnosticism would be the chicken before the and Plato would be the egg.
But then that would mean what was Gnostic then becomes official church doctrine. So then now that's no longer Gnostic.
Well, yeah, it basically became official church doctrine over time. It's basically what I'm getting at.
So do you believe in the immortal soul, or do you believe in soul sleep?
I don't.
Well, that's the same thing.
But I do believe there may be some kind of like rest, but that's not for the soul. That's for the spirit. But the spirit may be conscious. It's a bit confusing. But regardless, the soul, the life, the mind burns up or dies in a destruction on earth, such as Gehenna.
Yeah, that's what I understand is like...
Or drugs on earth.
Our bodies and our minds and everything, we die on earth. We don't go to some ethereal spiritual realm. But then there's a resurrection. We get new bodies. That's how I understand it.
Yeah. Well, you're very good with that one. What was going to get at, what's the joke I was going to make? We always hear that joke people make, all roads lead to Rome. Well, in regards to the church and all the stuff that is wrong with the church, all roads lead to Gnosticism. And what you're talking about right there with that idea, the Gnostics, where how we have that idea, many people have the idea that when we die, we immediately go to heaven and hell, right?
Yeah.
That comes from the Gnostics, and that made its way.
Technically, that comes from the Chinese.
Todd, you do realize that the Gnostics were not in just one place, and many of them really spread throughout the world.
It starts in Chinese origin.
Also, that Calvinism, like predetermination doctrine, that's kind of like, that's not scriptural.
There's only one form of predetermination that I have in my beliefs, and that even contradicts Gnosticism, which that's also narrative with Gnosticism. Interesting enough, aside from the immediately heaven and hell thing, you have another specific one. You're gonna burn forever.
Talking about eternal torment in case people didn't get the reference.
Yeah, so that's why I say I blame a lot of the stuff that is wrong with the church today is more than likely Gnostic influences. Now, some of the ones like the idea of, what's it called, immediately to heaven and hell, I think that may have been implemented not during the time of the Catholics, doing what they were doing, but I think that may have gotten in during the time of the Protestant Reformation and the Enlightenment.
Although,
yeah, I'm reading a book about how Christianity was changed, the influence of it. It does mention Gnostics a little bit, not too much though.
Well, though many people do attribute a lot of things they consider wrong with Christianity, like say December 25th and whatnot on pagans, which of course the Gnostics would still be considered pagans, but they're thinking of things like Roman pagan gods and the Egyptian gods and Constantine, which I've talked about before, that this has not actually happened in history, and December 25th was just a celebration that the Christians already had.
Also,
and a lot of the traditions did not exist until certain time eras.
Yeah,
that's also why hence sorry, P-Mars, but hence the title heathen heresies, because that's also an implication that some of them had pagan roots, and heathen were just also a word for the non religious believing. So go ahead. Sorry, I just wanted to add that tidbit.
There's a whole chapter here on Islam, actually, about how Islam influenced Christianity with things like the Crusades, the idea of a holy war, and the fact that Islam colonized Africa, then we copied that and colonized America and South America. And what's interesting, I think, is that Islam influenced Christianity, but not the other way around. That Christianity didn't really have much influence over Islam, and that back then the Islamic world was actually the high point of civilization. They were like the most dominant culture.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure about all that, because I think that say the colonization one maybe just be a coincidence, because it sounds like just a coincidence. However, one thing, yes, there was a bit of influence from Islam onto, say, the Roman Catholic Church. However, it wasn't from the Roman Catholic Church being influenced by, more along the lines of going to those regions and exchanging certain things through things like the Jesuits, I think it is. No, not the Jesuits, maybe Jesuits. Either way, when they were going to that region and getting certain foods and things from that region and bringing it back, I say traded over there for stuff like that. And one of which was coffee, which they originally called the devil's drink. And it was kind of funny with that story. The Pope is all I was like, all right, let's get this settled out on if this devil's drink is actually so bad. And the way he did it was to drink it. He's like, and this is basically how it's supposed to go. This devil's drink is so good, it would be a shame for us to leave it for the infidels. We will baptize it.
That's terrible. I hope he had cream and sugar, the heathen. If he drank it black, he's a heathen.
Oh, it's bitter. It was bitter at that time.
Throughout time, the church aligned with the power of the state. So, the king also had ended up influencing, what was taught in the church. Just like they do that today still.
Well, that's actually something kind of wrong. You know how you talk about, the idea of the early church not, partaking in wars and whatnot, right, Mars?
or the early Christians wouldn't
Yeah.
refuse military service.
Yeah, they often-
Conscientious objection.
Yes, well, interesting enough, let's say if you're looking at the history in the Middle Ages, the clergy, though everybody in that region would be usually considered Christian as opposed to, but then you have like what's considered a layman Christian. With the Catholics that are, or the clergy, they often like, we cannot partake in this stuff, we're not allowed to. They can if they want to, but we're not allowed to partake in this.
Yeah,
And that was
that's
a pretty
probably just
common.
they
Yeah.
didn't want to.
Well, it was actually kind of their doctrine. They don't want to partake in anything that's taking the life of another human. I wasn't finished them. And this actually is clearly shown in what's called the Inquisition. Though we get a lot of, misconceptions about it. It's basically like a court system. And the clergy itself was not the ones tormenting anybody. Only on very rare occasions, with only specific kinds of torture would they partake. And they would not partake in something, I don't know.
Yeah, it was very rare.
Like the cats. Yeah, very rare.
But the thing is, it was more like
I'm going to finish up. It was, and even when it came to the idea of like, a punishment for the person being accused of a crime when they were found guilty, they would refuse to give, and for the most part succeeded on refusing to hand somebody over to what is known as, I guess what you're about to say is the kings or the state.
The Spanish Inquisition, they didn't really torture that many people or go after that many people, but it was more like the threat of it. It was more like the threat of it kind of kept people in check. Sort of like in East Germany, the threat of the Stasi was more powerful than the actual Stasi. Like people were so afraid of them.
If I could for a second get an interjection here, I was gonna say there are Bible verses to support what is it? Trying to think of it. The not making the sins of your sins that are for you onto others. So there's some things that people do that you might not like. Doesn't mean they can't do it. So you shouldn't try to force them to stop doing the thing that you don't like, unless it's like a problem with the scriptures, like it's a heresy or something along those lines.
Like Antangelo telling smoking not to use foul language.
Okay, that's actually another interesting one you said right there. That's actually another thing that the Catholics practiced during the Middle Ages. The clergy and the Pope and all that, they let the layman practice certain things because it wasn't considered that bad. And it wasn't something that's like, oh no, they're saying Christ did not die on the cross or something like that. And just minor superstitions. So it's like, okay, we can let them believe in that for now. This is not harming anybody, even though we know it's not true. Things like, just think of the superstition from the Middle Ages, and you got basically what the layman would have got, and the church was like, we're not going to force anybody to stop believing that.
It's one of those forgiven, overlooked things. Yeah. It's not seen. The sin is forgotten of it. It's interesting, right? How it's like, oh, you're technically sinning, but you don't know any better, so let's turn a blind eye, so to speak.
Yeah. As for the refusing to hand people over to, the state, that changed a bit during the time of the Protestant Reformation. However, it was still mostly in practice on, hey, don't hand these people over. But then you had, in a sense, local inquisitions taking matters into their own hands and just doing it without consulting the major inquisition in a sense, which the inquisitors themselves were basically lawyers, judges, and whatnot at the time. Because if you actually look at how the system functioned, it's basically very similar to a court system. Well, now it went quiet.
I'm reading comics, sorry.
Yeah, I was reading this. I read I got a bunch of scripture to defend Smokey for using insults. Because the guy into it. Beckel told me like Jesus wouldn't, or Tangelo said this. I know that like Jesus wouldn't insult people, and I'm like, no, Jesus insulted people all the time.
If Feckle tried to say that, then I'm gonna say when. Oh yeah, when would if Feckle said it? When would he have said it? Because I did kind of talk to him about like the idea of insults, but I did also specify with the idea of these insults. You're not supposed to use it repetitively.
Right. Where do you get the idea you're not supposed to use it repetitively?
The idea of shock value. If you're using it repetitively, you're losing the shock value. It's just becoming almost like an everyday word. As well as the fact that I'm not finished. Well, I'm not finished. It's also the idea that you have the seasons for everything, hence season for profanity, for these profane words to be used with specific people. It's like, just think of it. It wasn't used with literally everybody, and it wasn't used repetitively by Christ himself. He used it on some occasions with specific people, calling someone a fox, referring to the Pharisees as vipers or whitewashed sepulchres with the bones filled with the bones of dead men, the dusting off of feet. Though they are things used by Christ, he didn't use it that often, and he used it with specific people. Quite often, what we consider a moralist.
And there was
students. No, there is some cases with Gentiles, but not that common. Calling them
like with dogs and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, a woman asked him for healing, and he called her a dog.
I can't remember if this is in like the Bible or not, but I think it might be in a Gnostic text where Christ makes a judgment and like he's like, don't be like the Ethiopians in their certain ways. But that might be in a Gnostic text. I don't think that one's in the Bible because I haven't been able to find it.
He told his followers like not to lose their salt or their saltiness. Meaning, I think that was like when I was reading him, he was telling them, don't become morons who aren't even fit for the manure pile or something. And it's just like Smokey calling someone gutter trash, pretty much.
Well, actually, that ties into one thing we talking about with in regards to the idea of these grafting ends and the whole Tophet, and how I kind of pointed out that Gehenna is more of an earthly destruction, not a reference to an afterlife destruction. But of course, there is a thing about it that's saying, hey, don't do this unless you're going to also go in with them into this earthly destruction. Hence, your evidence for the soul not being immortal, the body being destroyed, and the soul being destroyed. No mention of the spirit being destroyed.
They seem to use animals to insult each other a lot back then.
Oh yeah, they did, and
we do it today too.
Yeah, we do, but not as much as they did, and their insults were far better. It has to do with, I guess, linguistics would be a good way to refer to it as.
Because animals were kind of apart from nature. Like back then, they had to walk places, so like a snake would be more of a hazard, right? Like they had to deal with snakes on a daily basis. So like calling someone a snake was more insulting, I guess, in that cultural context.
Well, not always, because even snakes were considered symbols of wisdom or divinity in places, even including within the Israelites. Within regards to the idea of the seraphim. However, there is a negative context they use, of course, like you said, the vipers, referring to them as vipers and whatnot. And what's it called? Yes, there was indeed that insult, and that kind of has to do with the linguistics of that time and the way they would say words, having explicit meanings, such as like I talked about with the dusting off of feet, having several different things all being meant at once. And these insults, in comparison to our own insults, are considered pretty mundane in comparison to their insults. In fact, the dusting off the feet, that kind of evolved in Simple enough. If you ever go to the Middle East, do not put your feet up in front of somebody.
I think the best insult you could say to somebody nowadays is, the worst insult to the Lord was the day of your birth. And just leave it at that.
No.
No, that failed. It wasn't good. It sucked. I gave 0 stars. Okay.
You, sir, are a son of a bitch. And when I call you a son of a bitch, I'm not engaging in some sort of crass put down. No, when I call you a son of a bitch, I'm merely referring to the circumstances of your birth.
You know, there is actually an insult used exactly like that. I think Christ himself used it in reference to, I don't know, King Herod, maybe? But there is actually one in the Bible that's like that. So, oh yeah, you know how we have the word hell no, right?
Right.
Well, when you read in one of the passages, it says, by no means. That's basically what it means. That's basically the equivalent of hell no in that language. However, in that time, though, we would see the word by no means as like, oh, that's just simple thing. But at their time, it would have been like, by no means will we do this, or by no means will we fall away, kind of thing.
I fell.
Yeah. Well,
And then I fell through that hole, and then I fell some more. I've been missing for a year, and nobody's looking. Got my shit taken.
Also, that kind of goes in with the idea of dealing with these.
For me, everybody holds a hate. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, that also goes into the idea of these heresies like Arianism and whatnot. By no means did they, in a sense, kowtow to these heresies. They did not make, it's like, oh, we're not gonna. They did not make just some kind of thing. Oh, well, you guys all can believe that. It's like, no, this is not right. This is not true. Stop lying.
Anyone get the song reference? Sorry, go ahead.
I read that the word fool in Hebrew wisdom literature didn't just mean ignorant; it also meant immoral, and that's in
Maybe.
Psalm 14:1. The fool says in his heart, "There is no God. They are corrupt. Their deeds are vile."
Oh yeah, and I don't remember. I think the word moros, where we get moron from, though not mentioned that many times, I think there is a form of it being used as an insult once in the Bible, and as opposed to us just saying moron, which is not even considered a curse word. At that time, it was basically a curse word.
So when
Jesus
is calling Pharisees fools, he's also saying they're immoral, I think.
Which technically they are, though they are moralists, the intents in their minds and whatnot, and the stuff they intend to do, and the selfishness they have, and the holier than thou attitude is
To assume
immoral.
selfishness.
I see that in Antangelo, and he's like,
Oops, sorry.
trying to like get everyone to go after Smokey. It seems like the Pharisees, like he's judging Smokey for foul language, and it's really hypocritical. It's because all of us insult and use insults, and then Otangelo wants to be this arbiter of like, this insult is okay and this insult is not okay, and I, Otangelo, get to decide because I am God.
Well,
And
See, it would have been better if he would have had Christians, like I said, when it comes to these matters, we can't stand alone on either side. We need to do it as a committee because nothing gets involved with 2 people getting a talk because that's just the opinion of 2 others. We need a whole group. Should have been involved. I mean, like really in a conversation like that, you need the whole group. You can't just have it on a solo.
Oh wait! All right, everybody, get into Praises Discord. We're ditching this out right now.
You should have criticized Smokey for being angry, or you should have criticized Smokey for judging other people as not saved, or something like that. Like when he started like making these stupid claims, then he just like totally failed.
In full honesty, that's what I mostly, in a sense, have a problem with Smokey for. The insults, it's just more of a criticism because, in regards to the idea of insults, I acknowledge that there's nothing wrong with using insults, but the way he goes about it is a criticism on my part. It's like, hey, that doesn't always match up with the idea of using insults in regards to the Bible. And that's also some of my criticism with other people whenever they themselves will use insults but get mad at people for using insults. It's like, but you just did yourself multiple times. Don't be a hypocrite. And I can understand on your own channel, hey, I don't want anybody, using this profane language because my own channel, and also my rules, please. It's like, okay, I'll listen to your rules.
That's the thing. It's like, oh, sorry.
Yeah, and then the only kinds of insults I would have issue with would be 160 N-word and whatnot, just to the fact of the meanings behind them and the specific people they're targeted towards. And even if you're not referring to one specific, those people, the use of that word still has that meaning behind it, as well as the definition and whatnot. And with regards to that, I just find it tasteless. I ain't gonna stop you from saying it. Just don't say if we're on my channel and I'm doing a stream one day, don't ever say it, please. And as well as the idea, I just find it rude, tasteless, and almost slanderous.
So, like, I think it's cool. Smokey's not your style. You don't like it. You don't have to watch it, right? And like,
I mean, I don't watch him.
But what Atangelo does, Atangelo, it's like he wants to change Smokey in the way he does his things. It's like, dude, you shouldn't just leave him alone. Do your own thing. Because I don't like Atangelo's style, right? But I don't go there and go like, Atangelo, you need to be more like Smokey because I think you're boring. And that's basically kind of what Atangelo is doing. He's like, you need to change to be the way I like things. And it's like, who the fuck are you? That's what I think.
In full honesty, for Smokey, if I would want to change anything, the one thing, of course, a criticism. Pull back on the insults. Use them in the right manner. Use them at the right times. Don't use them all the time. That's just a criticism. Well, that's just a criticism advice for him. But they're really more along the lines of important ones, which, given the fact of the idea of a moralist, yes, please, I recommend that you don't do this because you are putting yourself at, in fault with God.
Well, I'd say that
so judgmental and pull back on the anger, please.
I would say that there's also calling a spade in some instance, and there's that use of it. So the time mostly, if he's calling a spade, then at the appropriate time, that language can be tolerated. You know what I'm saying? In a sense, no matter how. But again, it adds to that shock value, and the
shock value. But then also, like, he does it to just about everyone, and like, how many of these people actually are deserving of these titles? Because especially what I've seen before all this, before praise, I've seen him do that. And then during time of praise with Ashley, yeah, he definitely was in the wrong. So how many times has he afterwards is also in the wrong and being slanderous towards someone else?
Which is why
truth.
Which is why you don't have to like go, oh, Smokey said a bad word. Like there's plenty of material to attack Smokey. You don't have to like go to such weak.
I'd say pardon his transgression if he's transgressed you, especially since it's just an outside. It's not even you directly being transgressed at, so to speak. Like that's another thing, right? You can't just sit there and just be like, oh well, he's doing something bad. Well, then you have to pass that forgiveness because you're getting something mad at him for something he's not even necessarily doing to you. But he's like, I can see the worry in himself for the risk of the fire, and that's applaudable. But still, like even then, I think it goes to the people that's involved with, and we should just stand by and like watch, but not always. Like I said, perhaps there's time, especially when someone's in the wrong, to step in and make the correction, because we don't want to make each other look like fools, so to speak. Because that's not that way. Go ahead.
In regards to this idea and whatnot, it's like, yes, I also have no problem with like a bunch of Christians getting together and say, hey, let's try to help out this person or correct this person with some of the stuff they're saying. But at the same time, the way they go about it is almost like, look at this idiot kind of thing. It's like, really? I mean, at least try to have a civil discussion. But also in regards to the idea of my own issues with Smokey, the insults are not the issue, but the way of course, the way he uses him just a criticism. But of course, some of it verges on slanderous. It's like, hey, you don't want to be like the slanderer. I mean, he's literally called the slanderer. You want to be like the slanderer? And the simple fact that, from my own experiences from all the way back when Tog was the evil Christian that he was going after kind of thing. But of course,
I ain't never changed.
yeah,
I'm still evil.
yeah, even of course, don't that out.
Sorry.
But during that, he all started doing that to me. I'm like, okay. He opens up the room. Okay, I'm gonna see. Let me defend myself and whatnot. Let's see if we can actually get this dealt out with and make some corrections and all that. I'm not letting him in and all that. Oh, okay. So you're gonna say all this stuff about me, a lot of it being false and very judgmental, similar to the Pharisees. Then you're not going to let me in to defend myself. Okay, dusting off my feet, unsubscribing.
Ever heard that saying, let's not be too hasty? Maybe you were a bit hasty.
Well, I
And
stuck in there
because
for a while.
you have to remember, Smokey has an open mic night and an open challenge all the time, and that again, there's a time and place for everything, and that time wasn't obviously the right time. But to say you can't go back in because of that one instance is that just as bad on first what is that first interactions, and you had a bad first interaction, but that you shouldn't let that spoil.
Well, then
You should
again,
have gone back, but I know, and everything, but you still could have gone back on to his channel to confront him about it. It's not like you haven't not been able to. I mean, right now you're talking about it where you could really just go confront him and be like, yo, dude, you did this. You never really gave me the opportunity to defend myself.
well, then
And that, I
again,
think that would be a lot better.
I'm probably still banned from the channel after,
Well,
what
try
went
it.
down with
Go back and
Grace.
see.
Yeah.
If you haven't even checked to see, you're just speaking from ignorance then.
But regardless, just that, and like I said, the issue is the whole attitude and all that.
Yeah. I've been thinking about it, like, attitude versus the actions. Like, this doesn't matter, should we be calling each other out on our individual personalities, like, should our personalities match Christ, or should our works and our faith match Christ? I think that's a little bit more.
Well,
Now, if you're gonna
I
say
mean,
if you're gonna say our personalities, that we have, our personal personalities are gonna change to Christ, I don't know, because we still are in sin. So unless everyone's going to completely wipe out their sins, I think we're still going to have a bit of personality within us, because that's just how we are. And I bet that's maybe perhaps a little bit of the flaw in us.
well, I think
But I don't know. I'm speaking out my
Mark
butt.
says it almost too much. There is a good amount of truth in that. Is the whole idea of love and all that. And
Love,
just the
just
simple
love
fact, we're
away.
supposed to be imitators of Christ.
To the best of our ability.
Yeah, the best of our ability, but we are still to be imitators of Christ, and we should still strive to do our best to make our way that path. In a sense, the idea of looking at the man in the mirror and changing things, including things that are considered negative behavior.
Well, that's like people's opinion on what's negative too. Again,
Yeah,
it
but
goes in with context.
well,
Like, can you control when someone's outraged? Can you control when someone's disgusted?
of course,
And then I tell them to suppress those
of course. However,
things.
even if we're talking about the idea of outrage, are they justified in their outrage as well?
It all depends on circumstance. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
individual, case by case.
Yeah. Say if they're outraged on somebody just having, I don't know, they simply do believe that the younger Christian as a model is a good idea. Like, they do believe that it's accurate. Having outrage over that is not that big of a deal. It's like, okay, why are you so mad about that? It's not that big of a deal.
It's a potential, like this on both sides, how the old earth and young earth topic can be considered heresies on both sides. That's why. Because it could be considered a grave sin, and it could lead you astray from the truth, and that's why. Because if you'll believe that, you'll believe anything. You'll believe you already fell for the trick of the devil. You're believing the lie, so to speak.
Well,
so that's why people can get upset. It gets dangerous, man.
Well, with older Christianism, there really isn't like oh, look at them, they're heretical kind of thing in regards to what you're saying. But it's
Unless
like,
you're a
oh
certain
no,
individuals.
you're in danger of salvation and all of that. So, well, young Earth creationism does somewhat have a point with in regards to death being before, Adam and Eve rather than afterwards. And that's the only real point they have for the idea of that. But other than that, it's not that big of a deal to get so worked up over. And if anything, instead of getting so mad about the idea of younger creationism versus older creationism, everybody should actually just have a
Well,
nice discussion on it.
hey, man, are you gonna scream at your child before they touch the stove? Are you gonna gently tell them, "Hey, honey, don't touch the stove"?
Tog, I think you're making a bad comparison. It's not like anybody's touching a stove.
All risk of heresy can be potentially damnable. That's
Well,
just the fact of the matter.
But then again, the idea of it being heresy. Okay, how is it heresy? What makes it seem that way to be heresy?
And it's based off like the doctrine, so in some leeway, it all depends on some personal interpretation and what nowadays. But if they're conforming to a church, then it's by church doctrine.
And then in regards to the idea of heresy, there's different kinds of heresy. You have the major heresies, denying Christ is God, denying that he was, saying that he was created, saying that he never died on the cross and he was resurrected, and stuff like that. That's considered the major heresies. But while you have the minor heresies, like, I don't know, some saying the earth is flat, that would be considered heretical, but it's a minor thing and not that big thing to get worked up over, nor is it salvific. The only reason young earth creationism somewhat has a point is the idea of death being before Adam and Eve. It's like, hey, that doesn't sound right, because death was brought into the world by Adam. And that's the only real point they have in favor of saying this is a salvific issue. Other than that, they don't really have anything else to say. This is a salvific issue.
Technically, you don't need death for evolution. I'm going to end this after my point, though, because I got to get going. But I just wanted to say real quick, I guess we can have a little bit of like talking points or whatever at the end for you guys to have last words, because sometimes I just cut you off and I don't want to leave you without saying like I did you that last time. I did you dirty like that, Wiley. That was rude to me, so I want to make sure you guys at least get your final points across. What was I going to say? I lost it. Crap.
You were saying that it doesn't require death, and that it can be
the evolution
changing and birth and whatnot.
You said exactly. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
And I've heard what you said before, but they're basically dealing with the stereotypical idea of older creationism adhering to the idea of the fossil record, and this animal dies and evolves and evolves and evolves, and there's more death and more evolution kind of thing. That's basically what they're getting at.
All right, cool. P-Bars, you have any last words?
Yeah, Wild Eden, it's prostitution is not a good thing for the woman. Like she loses self-respect and integrity, and it's not like I'm judgmental towards them or hate them. It's
Watch Los Miserables.
Don't think it's healthy.
Sorry, I was watching it the other day.
No, they're teaching people that it's okay to be a prostitute and it's healthy and normal, and it's just
that's not
true.
Yeah,
that's not. Unless you're a man, then it's okay. If you're a woman,
you should be in monogamous relationships. Like, it's wrong to sleep around. So
I'm joking. I'm joking, of course.
Are you finishing up?
Take away prostitution from women. Yeah, I'm just joking, of course. Yeah, I'm finishing up. Thank you guys for stopping by. Take care. God bless. And be on guard.